So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's teacher workshop. We have a bunch of great presenters set up for today. We're really excited. I'm going to start us off with a land acknowledgement. So I am currently working in Austin, and as such, I am on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Cherokee, and Sauna people. Our ongoing colonial presence on indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the TCiN network is one small step towards that effort. I'm going to put a link in the chat if you would like to learn more about land acknowledgement and more about where you are. You can certainly learn it there. I'll put that in the chat. Just a couple little housekeeping things before we have Dave take over for our first activity. If you could go ahead and turn off your camera unless one of our presenters asks to see everyone, or you're presenting, that way we can save on some bandwidth, and then make sure that you are muted as well. And other than that, have a wonderful time. I'll be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions, let us know there. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. My name is Dave, and I am wearing a caving helmet, and I'm with an organization called TCiN, and we travel all over the US doing educational programs about caves and cave science and conservation. But the other thing that I am is a cave rescuer and also a cave explorer. So I wanted to show you just briefly a picture of me doing a real cave rescue, which was in Alabama in 2012. Here is me in the yellow helmet, and my wife is here, and our friend Eddie on the fire department is here, and this is the lady who got rescued. So I'm hoping that you guys all brought maybe some supplies for today. Let's see here. Here we go. So did anybody bring a candle? Give me a thumbs up if you brought a candle, an electric candle or a battery-powered candle. We're kind of doing a scavenger hunt today. And if you'd like to, instead of using the thumbs up thing, if you'd like to turn your camera back on, you're welcome to do that so I can see how you're doing with getting your supplies. Does anybody have a candle? Anybody? Chat it, put it in the chat. All right, cool. Ann does. Awesome, excellent. So we're going to be lighting our candles now so that we can explore the cave that is your house. Your house with COVID has become a cave, I am sure. And so we are going to be exploring our caves today. And do me a favor, it's a little bit challenging for me to get a sense of how everybody's doing without the cameras on. So if you'd be willing to turn the cameras on, I'd be super grateful to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and light our candles. I have something even more interesting than a candle. I have an old carbide lamp, and we're doing a chemical reaction inside this lamp. There is water in the top here, and it is dripping down onto some carbide. I see Paula has her candle, that's awesome. And we're making a flammable gas using water. And this is actually welding gas, it's acetylene gas. So this is how we used to explore a cave. So do me a favor, pick your candle up and take one lap around your table. And hopefully it's a little bit dark in your room right now, hopefully. Last time I did this, it was night. But go ahead and take a lap around, pretend it's very dark, and you're trying to see inside of the cave. Now don't trip, okay? We're gonna take a lap around our room here real quick and then come back to your computer. Okay, I'm gonna take my lap around. And we're gonna pretend something silly today. We are gonna pretend that I just got injured. Normally I do the cave rescuing, but we are gonna pretend that I got injured. So I need, as part of our scavenger hunt, I need you guys to help me by getting some things for the rescue. We're gonna pretend that I tore my quad, because that is what happened to the woman whose picture I showed you earlier in the stretcher. She tore her quad. She forgot about gravity. It turns out that gravity still applies underground. Don't forget, gravity still applies underground. And so she slid down a giant slab of rock and she crashed at the bottom and she tore her quad. We're going to pretend that that is what has happened to me today. So as part of our scavenger hunt, I would like you to go in somewhere in your house and find something that you can use as a splint, So that would be something stiff to hold my leg because we're not sure if I broke my femur some nice stiff object. And you can be silly with this. I mean, a kitchen spoon is fine. And then also something to wrap around to keep the splint on my leg. Okay, so go find that. And when you found something, go ahead and show me or chat in there in the chat to tell me what you found. Oh, I see that Sarah Ramirez has, what, is that a ruler? Is that a ruler and a string? That's awesome. I'm so glad you found a ruler and a string. That's perfect. Oh, that's awesome. Christy from EcoRise has a coat hanger. Christy has a coat hanger. That is excellent. Perfect. Okay, neat. Let's see, who else has something? Oh, Danielle, do you also have a ruler? Is that also a ruler? Okay, excellent. Awesome, cool, great. So now, of course, you know, I'm not feeling too well. Oh, and let's see, Danielle, what was that you held up? You had a little cloth of some kind. Oh, a scarf, perfect, awesome, a scarf, great. I'm not feeling too well because of all the pain. So why don't you go and get some medicine for me? Go find it, go find some kind of container of medicine, or if you have gummy bears, I'm sure that will help me a lot. And then as we go through the day, you can go ahead and snack on some gummy bears. I'm also feeling very hungry and thirsty. So go ahead and get something for yourselves to eat and drink. And by the way, I might change my mind. So get something you want to eat and drink. And then you can have that as your snack for the rest of today. Go ahead and get some kind of snack. All right. While you are getting that snack, I want to introduce you to somebody. William, come on up. Okay. This is my son, William. He is also a cave explorer. William, you want to say hi to everybody? Hi. And William is going to be rescuing me out of the cave today because we can't pull on ropes through Zoom, okay? So the other things we might get for a cave rescue, something warm, something to keep me warm. If you have a pillow, go ahead and grab your pillow. When you're in a cave, the rock absorbs a lot of heat. Rock has a very high heat capacity. So the other thing that we do is we put somebody who's injured on an insulating surface like a backpack or a pillow, something like that. Okay, awesome. Now, of course, you know, I told you that I fell by sliding down the rock, right, and crashing. So we have a yellow tower behind me. There's this big yellow tower, and the yellow tower has some ropes on it. And we are going to haul me up out of the cave, and William is going to help me. We have two rope systems to do the hauling. We have a rope system where there is just one rope. It goes up through a pulley and back down. And then we have over on the other side, we have a system of 5 ropes. And that we have five pulleys and 5 sections of rope. So I want you guys to make a hypothesis about, I'm sure you're channeling your inner kid here. Make a hypothesis about which one is going to be easier and put that in the chat. Either the dandy harness, and when we do school programs or park programs, we bring this harness to the places where we work, and we let the kids try pulling each other up the tower. And of course, we're using this to teach physical science, physics. Okay, so I'm going to use my handy dandy carabiner and clip in. And William is going to try the one-to-one system. Go ahead, William. Go ahead and pull, 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 pull. Harder, harder, harder. Oh my gosh. I can't go up. He's not able to pull me up. Okay, let's try the other system. Let's try the other side. Okay. And by the way, we're going to be doing an activity with a string in a little bit. A string, because I see that you have not brought your harnesses. So we're going to be doing an activity with a string. So go ahead and find a string if you do not have a string already. All right, we're clipping into this system. This is the side that has the 5 segments of rope. This is the 5-to-1 system. All right, William, go ahead. Go and give a pull. Okay, move your hands up. Hold on tight, pull down. Whoa, keep your hands up, pull down. Wow, William is able to lift me on this side. Pull down, pull down, pull down. And no, with your hands. Yep, hands up higher. Put hands up. Okay, pull down. Wow. Keep pulling, keep pulling. Don't let your dad fall down to the ground. Keep pulling, pull. Pull. Wow. 1, 2, 3. Pull. 1, 2, 3. Pull. This side is much easier. I am cheating a little bit and helping William, but this side is much easier. We're using a mechanical advantage to help pull me up the tower. A couple things to notice here from a physics standpoint. I can hold on with just one hand. In fact, I can hold on with just 2 fingers on the tower. The other thing to notice is that William, you probably can't see this, but William has a giant pile of rope at his feet. All right, lower me down. Go ahead and lower me down. All right. The deal is that a mechanical advantage always has a disadvantage. Thank you.
Nice to have go. It was fun laying you down today because it was warm.
It was warm. William says that it was fun letting me down today because it was warm. He was feeling the friction on his hands. Okay, awesome. So it is cold today. That's true. That's excellent. So we saw that the 5-to-1 system is much easier, and we can actually think about a mechanical advantage in terms of a seesaw. And if you think about a little kid lifting you on a seesaw, you could move in to the middle of the seesaw, and then the little kid could lift you. And so we talk about all these cool mechanical things when we do our cave programs. Okay, awesome. But I noticed that you have not brought your harnesses today. I guess it wasn't on the email list. I'm sorry about that. So instead of having you lay in the cave and be stuck in the cave, we're going to do a special kind of knot. So what I want you to do is grab a string. And again, if you feel like turning your cameras on so I can see how you're doing, that's great. Okay, we're going to take a string and we're going to make a little loop with our string. This is called a bite. We're going to make a bite of rope. And then we're going to take our finger, our index finger and our thumb, and we're going to put those into the loop. And then we're going to spread our fingers apart to make a little V. And the loose ends here are going to get wrapped into that V. Those are going to get wrapped into that V so that the loose ends are on your wrist like that, okay? And then what you do is you're going to make a circle with your fingers. The fingers that went through the loop, you're just bringing those and touching those together. And then this part right here where all the strings cross, you pinch that and hold that together. And then your little finger loop, you pull that out and you have a loop that you can put your fingers in. You've probably done this knot a million times before with a rubber band while you were sitting in a meeting, being maybe not 100% engaged. You know what I'm talking about, where you just take your fingers and you do like that and pull it through. That's the same knot. This knot here is called the lark's head. And if we wrap around one more time and go through this loop one more time, then we have what's called a Prusik. And a Prusik is a friction knot. And it's really good. So you've got this knot, you now know how to make this cool knot. And what's neat about that is that we can use that to climb up the rope and go up out of the cave. So I'm going to go ahead and tie that same knot on the rope here. I'm going to make my little loop and pull the loose ends through. And that's the lark's head. If I go around one more time, then I have a Prusik. And what's neat about the Prusik is that it is a variable friction knot. So I can pull really, really hard on this, really hard, and nothing happens. If I let the ends go loose, then I can slide the knot up and down the rope. And this is how I can climb up and out of the cave. Now, I also happen to have on an ascending system that has some very grippy teeth, and it's much more efficient than the knot that I showed you. But in a pinch, you could take your bootlaces and you could make that knot and you could climb up a rope. This is my ascender. And what's neat about the ascender, it's connected to the harness that I'm wearing. I have 2 ascenders. One is here at my waist and the other is connected to the harness on a string with some foot loops. And I can take my 2 ascenders and I can climb up the rope to go up and out of the cave. let's see here. Sarah Coles, would you like to give me a sense of how many more minutes, or do you want me to go ahead and wrap up? Okay, so I'm going to put my feet in these handy dandy foot loops that I've got here, and I can climb up and out of the cave. All right. Now, Texas has a lot of caves, and we are based in Colorado, but we come to Texas a lot with a big 26-foot trailer. And in that 26-foot trailer, we have a giant fake cave that I built, and it has computer scoring. And the purpose of the computer scoring is to teach kids and adults about the conservation of caves. So every time they bump into a stalactite or a stalagmite or a gypsum flower or a helictite, all kinds of fancy things, if they touch a bat or shine their headlamp on a bat for too long, they lose points in the computer scoring system. And we love coming to Texas because there are a lot of people who are interested in conservation and learning about conservation. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and down climb. And very briefly, I would like to show you, because I know your house has started to feel like a cave, but I would like to show you my fake cave, because no fake caving day would be complete without a little bit of a tour of a fake cave. So let's go ahead here, and I will share. This is just under 2 minutes.
I'm Dave Jackson, and I am the inventor and owner of TCiN. I can't afford a spaceship. I can't go into outer space.
Okay, so this is breaking up.
But I can explore.
I'm going to just show you, instead I'm going to just show you a couple of pictures of the cave. This is a late elementary school student exploring the cave, and you can see that we have all of these very delicate, cavers call them speleothems. So we have soda straws and helictites and stalactites and stalagmites, and this child is trying to not bump into these. But the other thing that we have is the vertical caving tower. We have cave rescue gear and things like that, and it's really fun. And we teach a lot of science. And so the very last thing that I want to show you is that I have of course I showed you the carbide lamp earlier, but I want to show you a carbide lamp that I have that is used to teach kids about conservation of energy and conservation of mass. So here I have an Nalgene bottle, and I have a little bit of carbide here. And on the carbide it says, warning, flammable and explosive gas forms if contents become wet. So we're going to add some wet today. I'm going to add a couple of these little carbide rocks to our container, drop them in the bottom. And then I'm going to add some regular boring drinking water. This is not gasoline or anything magic like that. I'm going to put this down into the container, and I have a scale. And what's neat about the scale is that I can weigh the container before and after we start the chemical reaction. And I can get a sense of how much, if any, the weight changes. I would like you guys to make a hypothesis, if you would, about whether you think when I mix the carbide and the water, whether you think the mass is going to go up, go down, or stay the same. Here's the idea. I'm going to have this container sealed nice and tightly. And we're going to mix the carbide and the water, and we're going to keep a little lid on top here, a little lid, and it has a valve, and we're going to keep that valve nice and tightly closed. Who thinks that, okay, great, awesome. Sarah says, stay the same. Excellent, good. Any other guesses? We have Christy saying stay the same. Great, I'm gonna put this on here nice and tightly, and let's go ahead and get a mass. Now it's a little windy today, so that's going to throw off our measurement a little bit. Let's tear the scale, put this on. 199.7 grams. With the wind, we might have a little bit of uncertainty there in our last digit. Let's go ahead and mix these two. And you're going to see a whole bunch of bubbling. 199.7 still, 199.7. We have not destroyed or created matter. Now for the exciting part. I'm going to let out some of this gas and ignite it. Okay. So we created a high pressure gas inside the container with a chemical reaction. Awesome. So I'm going to turn this back over to Sarah. Thanks for going caving with me today. I hope you guys had fun. I'm sorry the video didn't work, but I hope you had fun finding cave rescue gear and candles and ropes and things like that.
Thank you, Dave. I did put the video, I think, in the chat. And so if any of you want to look at that later, we certainly have that. And now I'm going to hand it over to Bianca Banda. She is with Texas Parks and Wildlife at Benson Rio State Park, and she's going to be doing a presentation about ecophobia.
Does everybody know where the raise your hand button is? Let me see if I can do this here. Awesome. I see people raising their hands. Perfect. Okay. So my name is Bianca. It's awesome to be here with you guys. I love this topic. I'm a park ranger and interpreter at Benson State Park. I grew up in a wild little farming area with my mom as a teacher. She was a math teacher. And I grew up with animals my whole life. So it kind of fell onto me to be into this position. So what is an interpreter? Interpreters originally started as law enforcement. So when you have law enforcement, you have to interpret. You have to tell people what it is that is important about that natural resource and why. That way they can understand how to better keep it. But as things developed, an interpreter became so many more things. And it became its own job position, which, yay, I'm so happy to have. But why this topic? So there's a lot of people who have come upon things that I enjoy, which, I mean, I love all the weird and creepy and odd things. But originally I started with an interest in plants. And when you get an interest in plants, you kind of have to learn about things that can affect them in good ways and bad ways. And so you'll see different things in the garden. You'll see spiders, you'll see snakes, you'll see all kinds of things. And even as a kid, I was all about it. So love at first fright. I originally didn't know what to think about spiders. Everybody has their fears and opinions, and it is a natural thing to feel, that kind of fear for spiders. But at the same time, I was also that little kid who would go and try and find bugs and things in the garden and throw them on the spider web just so I could see what was going to happen. So FDR has this famous quote, and I think it really applies here. We've got a lot of things that we need to know about fear. And the title of this program is Ecophobia. But phobia is actually something very different from a regular fear. So in a fear, you have something that's reasonable, something you can work with. And in a phobia, you can't really work with it so easily. It's more irrational, it's debilitating, and it requires a little bit more of professional guidance. In this program, I'm going to focus more on what the fear is. Phobias, like I said, you have to work on that with professional guidance. And I'll give you a few examples of that too. So in everyday anxiety, feeling queasy while climbing a tall ladder. The phobia version of that would be, refusing to go to your best friend's wedding because it's on the 24th floor. And these are things that you would see every day. I had my own experience with something like this when I was a child with another student in a classroom. As I said, my mom was a teacher. And so in her classroom, she had a student who had a phobia of death. Unfortunately, me being the younger kid there, my class was already let out. I got into that classroom and I got taken advantage of by the students in that classroom. And I didn't know about this phobia. And so when they presented this student to me and they said he doesn't believe in death, I brought it up. And the reaction to that, he completely shut everybody out and there was no talking to him. He put himself over into the corner and it was something that was debilitating. He really couldn't get out of it. And so when you're thinking about these phobias or fears, think about what it actually is. Is it something that you can work with, or is it something that you need professional advice for? And here are the statistics for that to keep in mind while you're thinking about it. Approximately about a third. So men, women, children make up about a third in phobia statistics around the world, with children making about a third of that third. So what are some of these common nature-related fears? So we have, in the first example, insects, moths, something that flies as well. That's something that I see often. When we have our night programs, you have kids who don't like the noise of the buzzing around their ears, or just don't like insects in general, the way they feel when they're crawling on you. Things that are venomous, like the black widow spider. That's another fear, am I gonna die from interacting with this? The snakes is more of a symbolic, it can also be venomous, but symbolic animal. So if you think about here in the valley, we have certain things that people say like lechuzas. I don't know how many people are familiar with lechuzas. I still see everybody raising their hand. So if you're not super familiar with what a lechuza is, put your hand down. So for those of us who don't know, lechuza is kind of like a witch, but that takes on the form of an owl. And that's a very popular belief. And it's something that we have to deal with on our programs. And it's something that we've actually put a lot of effort into looking into the history of as well. Another fear would be like getting lost in an unknown place, getting dirty or something gross, somewhere up high, getting injured without people around. I mean, the list is endless, and these are just a few pictures to kind of depict that. Yay, Stan the man. with great power comes great responsibility. So a big part of this is you. How you see it and what you know is going to affect how well your program runs. So how many of us know what that insect is, that animal there in that picture? Awesome. So that is a honeybee. Yes, it's a honeybee. So honeybees, a lot of people have allergies to honeybees, right? And that's a big part of what we need to know as well. So our subject. This is a big thing. One of the biggest things that people want to do immediately is have a live subject, and it's not always necessary. You can actually do a lot with props. Live subject actually puts a lot more stress on you, and if you're stressed out, the kids are going to be stressed out. So I would say, if you can do it with props, do it with props. We do our skins and skull stuff all the time. We do insects that are already unfortunately dead, but in resins and casts so that they can see them, they can touch them, they can see what's going on, and we can explain different parts of the insects. It's another thing that's difficult to do if your subject is moving around too much. So your audience, there it is, allergies and medications. Something you need to know. All of these are going to be need to know. I made out a form, and I'll put it here in the comments here in a little bit, that goes with this PowerPoint. So you all can go through each thing in the list and see exactly what it is that you might not have paid attention to before and might need to, or maybe even get ideas off of certain things in that list. Age groups and attention spans. That is a really, really big one. We usually get mixed families, so we have to kind of judge by the youngest in the group. Clothing and gear. Nothing is worse than having someone dressed in the wrong kind of clothing, or especially the wrong kind of shoes, and you're about to go out for a hike or do something else and they can't. That's where permissions and supervision comes in handy too. So always try and let the parents know what it is that you're going to do before you embark on that adventure. That'll help them prepare their kids too. They don't want to put them in some real nice clothes. They can put them in something else that they can get dirty in. And some parents, if you need extra hands in the classroom, they might be willing to volunteer for that too. Accessibility and capabilities. General and straightforward. Know what people need that access and what people need help to be able to do what it is that you're trying to do. And background and other demographics. Like I said about the story for the lechuza as an example, there's certain cultural beliefs or there's certain things that we grew up with that we need to be aware of when you're doing programs like this. Limits, everybody has them. So these are questions that you should be asking yourself. If you can't answer these very well, then you might have to rethink what it is you're trying to do. And here on this tower, if I could see a show of hands, how many of us know what this tower is? This little pyramid, I guess I should say. Awesome. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The safety and the other one at the bottom were the two that we're concentrating on for that. The rest of them you kind of build up into. So long as you have those first two down, the rest of them are going to be easier to do. So here, I do have a special little thing to work on here. Under understanding responses to stimuli. Our perception has a lot to do with how we view different things. And one of my favorite animals, I guess, I got asked one time when I asked, you know, what's your favorite insect? They asked me back and I was like, oh, wow, what is my favorite insect? Well, funny enough, it's from that same group of the bee. It's the Hymenoptera family, which is wasps. So in this picture, you have a paper wasp. And I want you all to respond with a raised hand for yes. And the question is, can it sting you? This is a very popular question that we get a lot. And paper wasps build these really amazing nests and are pollinators as well. And so they're really important for a whole bunch of stuff, a whole mess of stuff. And they actually were the inspiration behind paper itself. I see a lot of raised hands. Okay, you're right. That would be something that can sting you. Now, without telling you what this is, I'm going to ask the same question. Is this something that can sting you? And raise your hand if you think it is. Okay, I see some raised hands. Okay, so this is actually a moth. It is mimicking a wasp and is doing that to protect itself from predators and other things that might want to harm it. Also a pollinator, but it cannot sting you. Okay, same question. Can it sting you? See one or two here. Okay, so this, it actually looks a lot like a black carpenter bee. We have some really big native bees, but the eyes make it a fly. This is a giant cactus fly. So it cannot sting you, but it is also a pollinator. There's some tricky stuff here. Now, what about this one? Can it sting you? I have 1 yes, 2 yes, 3 yes, 4. Awesome. So this is a bee and it can sting you. It's not really going to want to unless you make it, but it's also another really good pollinator. How about this one? Got a 1 yes. 2 yeses. So this is another wasp moth. This is the Texas wasp moth. Also makes itself to look like a wasp, but it cannot sting you. It isn't a moth. And one of the ways that you tell is the antenna there. They've got all these little feathery projections on them, and that is a characteristic of moths. Okay, I've got a couple more. This one right here. Now, this is one of my favorites, and it's a very strange insect. It's got a misnomer for a name. Can it sting you? We've got 2 raised hands. So that one is actually it's called a velvet ant. And the answer is actually yes and no. So the female can sting you, but she doesn't have any wings. The one in this particular picture is a male, and it does have wings, and it has no stinger. It's also known to have one of the most painful stings, those females. What about this cute little guy? This is called a cuckoo wasp. Got one raised hand. So cuckoo wasps have the tiniest little stinger, and they have to try really, really, really hard to sting you with it, but they can sting you. And what's really interesting about the cuckoo wasp, besides how it looks, is that it's a parasitic wasp that lays eggs that eat other wasps' larvae. And the last one, how many of us know what this is? It's also a misnomer. Do you think that it can sting you? So this is a Tarantula Hawk. It's not a tarantula or a hawk, but it is a wasp. And this wasp has a category 4 on the Smith scale of pain sting, which is the highest category. It's a native wasp that goes for tarantulas. It uses that stinger to paralyze the tarantula so it can take it down into its nest and feed its young. And that's why it has such a painful sting. But wasps like this and other ones are being used for things like cancer treatments and what other medical applications. It should be really interesting to see where it goes in the next few. So how many of us would have been scared seeing some of those non-stinging insects? I could see a show of hands. We got quite a few people. So that's another thing to know, that the responses are there whether or not the actual danger, we'll say, is there. And in this case, this is another one. There's that common thought that toads give you warts or they make you sick or you name it. And in a lot of people, I've seen that this provokes the response to run away from toads. I actually had the opposite happen to me when I was a kid. A fellow student went towards the toad and threw a rock on it. So you do have different responses, and the way to approach them is to know that they're natural. It's unfortunate in some cases, like that one, but usually those cases aren't very common. More often than not, the response is going to be that they're going to want to get away from it. Same as the animal feels about us. And one of the biggest ways that you can help prevent that is by doing the research on it beforehand. Misinformation is a big one. It's something that's really prevalent, and it's something that you would need to address. Unlearning, that's something that would start with you. So anything that you might perceive as dangerous that might not necessarily be dangerous, that research is going to come in handy, and that's what you're going to need to know to help them out. I found this really useful when looking at the different stages of unlearning, and it helps in as far as teaching. This is unlearning for teaching, but our unlearning can be applied to different things. Provoking. So something that you need to do as well is to provoke. Sensationalism is the far end of that you kind of want to stay away from. We call it entertainment, where it's literally just you entertaining the crowd. It doesn't really have the effect that you want for teaching or learning or inspiring. So shock and awe should be used sparingly and in a way that's relevant. And I see that, like, for example, that story about the toad that I just said. That was shocking for me, but it's relevant to this. Try to refrain from pranks and joking. So there is a story that I do have from a coworker who performed a program on scat. And if you don't know what scat is, it's poop, it's animal poop. And he did a program showing the different ways that it's a resource, that it's needed in the wild. And some of that is that animals actually eat scat. And so he made a chocolate scat and he put it out on the trail, and then he went over there and ate it in front of people, and then, oh, you know, haha, it's chocolate. But then the youngest one of the group later on went through and tried to eat scat that he found later on the trail, which was not chocolate. So I would say try to refrain from pranks or joking, just overall, so you can avoid situations like that. And inspire. How many of us know what I mean when I'm saying, when I say something about the spark? The spark is like that little glimmer you see in the child's eye or in an adult where the learning is starting to begin. They want to know more. They want to start looking into it themselves. They want to participate. They want to just be in it. And that is the favorite thing of interpreters to see, is that spark. And some of that comes from how you present it. And so think about that as you're doing it. The way that I kind of do that is I think about people that inspire me. And one of them is my grandfather, and the other one is quite famous. Yay, Steve Irwin. So Steve Irwin, if you look at his body language here, I mean, he's holding a little dangerous animal there. He's got a fist pump power pose, and he's got an excited face. I don't know how much more inspiring you could be than that. So when you're talking about these things, try to think of this image in particular and try to kind of promote that in yourself when you're talking to your students. So this was a program that we had. You can see all the skins there on the table. We had a mixed group, some older people, some younger kids. And we had a live animal as well, which was not planned. We had a snake that somebody had found by their site, and they almost stepped on it. It was a little baby rat snake. And they gave it to us. And so we presented it here at this program since we were going to have it anyway, which helped with the timing of things. That way we could release it really easily and not have to worry about stressing out the animal. So we did that. They got a kick out of that. They did the skins and skulls, and then I got them these journals so that they could talk about their own experiences. One of the things that people love to do is share their stories. And so I gave them the options to write, to draw, whatever it is they wanted to do. And that's a really good way to kind of help keep that memory for them. And it's a really good way for you to see how they addressed what it was that they were learning or what it was they were presented with. So your bottom line, the way that you want to see all those goals, what it is you're trying to achieve, pick something as specific as possible and start there. Something simple, something specific. And then to plan, how do you get there and what are your obstacles? I drew out this little table. and I included one in the form for your expectations, limitations, outcomes versus your needs, wants, and dreams. You would start out with your needs and figure out exactly what the outcome is that you want, and then fill it in for your expectations and limitations. So example, if you just wanted a basic ecology for your students to grasp something basic, well, you would need your nature, and you would need the curriculum connection. And limitations that might be there. If you don't have a nature space, you would need a nature space. Time, I know time is a big issue. And then background information, knowledge of the subject, things like that. And from there, it kind of develops into what I would put as my dream for those students to have a career connection or life skills that they can apply with this as well. Measurable objectives. So again, the journals are there. This one I included the First Explorers. One of my favorite journals to do is kind of like a free play style of journal. You allow them to go out and pretend they're the first explorers, to go out and find something, name it, talk about it, describe it, what they saw on it, what it was doing, and write that all, draw whatever it is they want to do in that journal. And that's a really good way to see where it is that they're at and what connections they're making. But remember that after the programs, I'll usually play along, say, hey, you know, I can't really remember what we saw today. Can somebody help me remember that? Like, what did we see today? And that way you get to kind of also see what it is that they remembered the most, and you can ask them more about it that way too. Show of hands surveys, like what I was doing with the wasps, and then their test scores. I would say the test scores are going to be the easiest way for you to assess, but I would definitely recommend finding other ways as well. And make sure you have those measurable objectives, because that's going to be important for you to know exactly what your results are and why. Teachers are awesome. So a teacher affects eternity. He or she can never tell where their influence stops. And I thought this was very important. And, you know, my mom's a teacher, and I always told my mom, because she would stay home late and do all this work, I told her, you know, I don't want to be a teacher. And then I added a little stipulation, and I said, unless I can teach outside. So I ended up kind of doing that. And so a lot of big things come in here. This is where the magic happens, essentially. You have to kind of put yourself through these steps. Put yourself in their shoes. Whatever they're going to be doing, you should expect yourself to be able to do it as well. Be the first one to do it, and see if anybody wants to help you. I always say help, like not do it instead, or not any other way, but help you do it. Always tell them why. And this one is probably going to be the most tedious. It's okay to say you don't know why if you don't know. Eventually that's where it leads, because there's always going to be the why this, well then why that, well then why this. It's actually very helpful to tell them why, especially for reasons, safety reasons, because they'll acknowledge things better. So for example, when I tell them on a hike, you know, I need to lead because, especially for a night hike, I need to lead because I need to see if there's dangers there. I'll be the one walking into spider webs. I'll be the one finding the snakes. I'll be the one, you know, scouting the whole area before you guys walk in, so you don't have to worry about it. Career connections. So this is also something that's really, really good to think about in more ways than one. Not only would you be showing them certain careers that could go into this if you introduced people who have those careers, but they could also help you with the knowledge of the subject. They could help you with different questions and things like that that you might have. I can give you the example of where I helped with a hiking club at a school over in Northeast Texas when I was working there. And we would go to their school, perform a hike, they'd ask questions and things like that. And then we go to the park several times for field trips. And they'd get to ask their questions there. They'd get to interact with nature and do different little activities. And then learn about the job itself. I had a lot of questions about the job itself. So definitely reach out to any resources you can. It's going to be a big help. Rewards, pretty self-explanatory. How you do it is totally up to you. I'm sure most people have reward systems set up, but don't forget that you're a participant in this too, and you should reward yourself as well. That's extremely important because this can take a lot of time and effort. So into the thick of it. How do we conquer fear? I'm a very big believer in this, that curiosity will conquer fear. So I've got two animals here. I think everybody knows what the bottom one is. But can I see a show of hands if you know what the top animal is? Got two hands raised. Okay, so that top animal is called the satin bowerbird. It's a fun word to say, bowerbird. And the satin bowerbird is a bird that has kind of stumped a few ornithologists, bird scientists, in how its brain works. Satin bowerbirds use these really elaborate displays to impress females. So that's the male there in the middle. And he puts all these little blue things around there, specifically blue, and he builds this little thing here in the middle. And it's all to impress the female. Normally, when you have birds trying to impress a female, it's to show their survival skills or how healthy and fit they are. So in the example of a mockingbird, a bird that knows a lot of good songs of other birds and can perform them well is a healthy bird. But this is something entirely different. How does she judge that this is a healthy bird based off of this? And one of them is building it, but then why all the blue? So there is a lot of controversy over the way this bird's brain works in as far as art versus instinct and health. And it's a really cool topic. I would encourage you to look more into it. And so making connections like that between humans and animals, the fact that bird brains used to be considered dumb because they were small, and now they're considered one of the smartest animals, is just amazing in itself. And you can see that we don't really look much like birds, and even our brains look different. They're set up different. But there's also those similarities and things we don't know yet. And for cockroaches, interestingly enough, cockroaches are super amazing. They're doing science right now to figure out if they can use cockroaches in radiation leaks and attach little systems to them so they can check for radiation leaks. But cockroaches are actually one of the cleaner animals. They can't stand to be dirty. And a lot of us have this assumption that cockroaches are very dirty. But if you go and you touch a cockroach and then you watch it later, it actually cleans itself because essentially we're the dirty ones and it wants to clean itself of us. So there's a lot of interesting connections that you can make between people and animals just to spike people's or students' curiosity. So one of my favorite activities is the mystery box. And it can go really, really well, or it can go really, really wrong, depending on how you do it. Again, try to stay away from the pranks and the jokes and things like that. But in the mystery boxes, we usually put furs or skulls or things like that that were a little bit more obvious. And most of the time, the adults or the older kids would try it first. It's a little bit difficult to get the younger kids to try it. So in something like this, if you have a younger class and you wanted them to figure out the mystery or kind of be involved in it, whether you're doing it online or in person, you would usually want to have somebody else do an example first to get them kind of comfort, to give them that comfort level with it. The other thing is that if you're going to use anything live, you have to be there with it at all times, because anybody can walk up and touch it or mess with it for even a moment if you're not looking at it. The other part of this, the build it, is in reference to using nature items to build things. For example, you could have them build like a nest, give them a prompt, say, hey, you know, you need to build a bird's nest. And the example that I did is I had one person be the tree, and so they had their arm outstretched, and they had to build that nest inside of their elbow. The other person had to build a nest inside their elbow. And it just kind of brings them into a different point, a different curiosity, kind of see what animals go through, or give them the sensations of different things, the mystery of it all. And then free play. Free play, super important. I always try to give a few minutes of free play. I try to push for it. I just make sure that you've scouted the area beforehand, whatever area it is you're going to use. And it doesn't need to be an outdoor area. You can use an outdoor area and you don't have to supply anything in that situation. Or you can use an indoor area, like the little nature library I'm talking about here, where you have different little pieces of nature, sticks, rocks, things like that, that they can play with. And another good thing to do would be to have a stockpile of nature magazines, something that can get torn and messed with, but has a lot of really good information in it as well. And then reflect. Was your program successful? So on all of this, you're putting all this effort into it, and you want to make sure it was worth it in the end. You go back to your measurable objectives. Did you get to see those completed? Surveying the students with the different things you did, the journals or show of hands, things like that. Did they retain the basic information? And was it equivalent to your effort? And if it wasn't, then you might have to reconsider the way you did things. Even if your program was successful, if your effort wasn't equivalent, you should definitely try and reflect on that and try and change it. And if you ever need help with it, always reach out to people like me within the state park system or in some other nature-related career, and we would be happy to help with that. I'm sure anybody you talk to would be happy to help with that. And that's my program. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Just so everyone knows, I will be sharing Bianca's PowerPoint as well. You guys will be getting an email early next week with all of the information.
Yes, and the form as well that I was talking about.
Yes. Well, thank you, Bianca. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm actually going to share the screen real quick. We're about to for joining us today. I'm starting the recording back up just to kind of get our final announcements. So just a few things to keep in mind. We did record today, so I will be sending out links to all the recordings. So if you know someone who wasn't able to make it today, or you want to share with a coworker, please feel free to do that once I send out the links. They'll all be on our YouTube channel. And then also if there was another breakout room that you didn't get to go to because there's only one of you and there were multiple breakout rooms that you wanted to be in, those will be up on our YouTube channel as well. You'll be getting an email with those links and then also the PowerPoints, so you guys can have that information. If you're asking for anything specifically in the chat, please email me those requests as we go through as well. For certificates, if this will be in the follow-up email. I need you to email me a request for the certificate, not put it in the chat. So go ahead and email those to me, and that all those directions will be in the follow-up email. But other than that, thanks so much for coming this morning.
Can you repeat that for a second? Because you were cutting out where I am, and I wanted to hear what you said.
Yes, so you will be getting a follow-up email that will have links. It will have the PowerPoints, and it'll have directions on how to request a certificate. So you'll be getting that email. All of you registered with an email address, so I'll be sending it to those emails that you registered with. And other than that, I hope you all have a fantastic Saturday. Thank you to all of our presenters. It was a great morning, and I know that all of our teachers really appreciated your time. So
thank you
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.